everyone, and welcome to this non-spoiler review for The Smashing Machine, this brand new film that's out in theaters this weekend, starring Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt, written and directed by Benny Safdie. That's right, Benny Safdie of the Safdie Brothers going solo here. The film chronicles 3 years in the life of UFC and Pride combatant Mark Kerr, and it's based on the 2002 documentary of the same name, The Smashing Machine, from John Hyams. They're the director of that documentary. So I went in kind of really excited to see what we were going to get in this movie, because it's Dwayne Johnson, who I absolutely love as a performer. And yes, I've got my issues with his ego at times with the WWE or some of the stuff around Black Adam and what have you, but I've had the pleasure of meeting him twice and interviewing twice, and he's been a wonderful person, certainly a guy who I've idolized for quite a long time. So I always cheer for him to go past his comfort zone to see what he can do as an actor, because I've enjoyed him when he's done a little more, how can I say this, a little more kind of slightly dramatic takes on things. Even in a black comedy like Pain and Gain, I thought he really stood out. There's a film called Snitch where he is trying to save his son from drug dealers that I thought was a really nice turn. There is this ability for these guys who are hulking and massive to show you their inner turmoil in their inner life. And I knew Dwayne Johnson always had that within him, having followed him for so long. So I was excited to see what we're going to get in the movie. And I will say this, number one, right off the bat, he is the reason to watch the movie. It is an incredible performance, very touching, very moving. As I said, a man of immense size. I think The Rock's even bigger than I've ever seen him before in this movie, yet inside he's smaller than I've ever seen him before. He's a guy that's incredibly nice and kind to everyone around him, courteous, except when it comes to his relationship, which we'll get into in just a second. But he is certainly a guy who is almost ashamed of how big he is and the way he handles himself and the way he does what he does. And what you find out throughout the movie is this is the guy who hates what he's actually good at. He would love to have been something else. And if you watch the documentary, there were other plans for his life, but he kind of went into this as a way to make money. And you see him struggle with the trials and tribulations that he experiences in the movie. Initially, he's a guy who has never lost. So you see him and his brutality and his ferocity from his debut match all the way to the last match he has in the movie, and you see the journey that he's on. There's a great sweet scene with him in a waiting room with an older lady and a young child or grandchild, I think, and having conversations about the life that he's living and the things that he's doing. And then you juxtapose that with the stuff going on with Emily Blunt, who plays his girlfriend. I think Emily Blunt does an exceptional job. However, I do think the role is a bit underwritten. She does the best she can with a role like this, and it's Emily Blunt, so you're never going to get a bad performance from her. And certainly the moments they have together when they explode at each other in a fight or when they're having really sweet, tender moments with each other, you buy into the emotion and the connection and the chemistry between the both of them, and that speaks volumes about their performances as actors. But we get to the problem with the movie, and the issue with the movie to me is that they do such a good job of fleshing out Mark Kerr that there's not enough time or not enough screen time spent fleshing out all the other characters that are in this movie. And I mentioned Emily Blunt here as Dawn Staples. We don't get a lot of time with Dawn. We only see Dawn in relation to Mark. And even then, we don't get a lot of time to see their relationship develop and grow, because the issues that pop up between them just kind of pop up out of the blue. There's nothing that's really kind of led to those moments. There's no other conversations that are happening that lead us to these moments. And so at times it feels a bit disjointed, and you're not really 100% buying why they're reacting to each other this way, because you haven't, as the viewer, been given the background on stuff. Yes, you understand what they're arguing about, you understand what they're saying to each other and why they're emotional with each other, but you haven't had that build up to those moments. So it feels a little hollow at times. And I've seen some reviewers say that there's a distance to the movie, and I would have to agree with that. There is a distance. Even though the performance is great, the chemistry is great, there's still a distance to these characters and wanting to connect with these other characters, other than, of course, Mark Kerr, because they do a really good job of fleshing that character out. I also think Ryan Bader here as Mark Coleman is really good in the film. His relationship and connections with The Rock work really well, and that's the relationship that gets fleshed out a little bit more than the relationship with Don, ironically. The two Marks get enough time with each other. You understand their friendship, you sense their friendship, and as a guy, you certainly connect with that dude who doesn't say too much, but understands you from the inside out and accepts you for who you are. There's a beautiful scene when Mark gets into his addiction to the opiates and his addiction and his substance abuse issues. Mark flies in to see him. Mark Coleman flies in to see him. And Ryan Bader and Dwayne Johnson have a wonderful scene there of friendship and pain and shared suffering that I think is amazing. I mean, I can't stress enough how incredible Dwayne Johnson is in this movie. The Rock really brings it And there's some very deeply touching, emotional, heartbreaking moments with him, and he dials in. There's no fear. That's what I love about this performance. There's no fear. It's a brave performance, showing you his pain, showing you his sadness, his anger, his frustration, his tears. And even when he experiences losses in the film, you feel for him so much because of what you've had built up throughout the movie. And so you cheer for him to get past these issues, get past these things that are holding him back, to go back to that place of peace and happiness. And I will say this about the direction. I think Benny Safdie does a fantastic job directing the movie itself, even though I have issues with some of the distance that you feel throughout the film between you and like Dawn and you and the other characters in the movie. You don't have enough time to flesh out, but I think the direction here is an interesting decision. It's a very unusual biopic. And I understand why some people are saying, well, this is a film that's like, The Rock feels like he's in a different film than the film itself. I understand that because The Rock is delivering the soulful performance, but the film itself is very kind of 90s videotape, 70s influenced, in that it's gonna show you what it's gonna show you, but it's not gonna do the work for you. And so it's just kind of jumping from one thing to another cuts. There's like the videotape footage. That's a really nice effect that they have there. But I think at times it pushes you out of the movie, right? And I appreciated it as a guy who loves film. I love the chances he was taking, Benny Safdie, with something like this. But for all my issues with the distance that you feel in the movie, I think Safdie does a great job of showing you what this life is like, especially at this time when they were laying the foundations for the success that you see of the UFC and MMA federations nowadays. These guys were there at the beginning, kind of like the old school NFL players, the old school NBA players, who were doing it for not that much money. And you see quite a few scenes where he's dealing with how much money he's making. I mean, he can afford a house, he can have all these things, but it's also a haggle to get the money, and also dealing with the pain, dealing with the travel, going to Japan constantly. There's so much of that that are chronic, and the working out. And then you're seeing what this life will lead to as you see the older trainers experience some physical issues as they're training the younger guys who are coming up behind them. So it does a really great job of chronicling the UFC MMA experience at that time for these young fighters. But how long does that last? There's a great scene with Mark Coleman, a great shot of him after he's successful in a match. He's just sitting all alone on a couch. No one's around him. No one's cheering him after he's walked out of the ring. And it shows you that there's a solitary life that goes with being a victor. So I think Safdie does a great job of chronicling that here throughout the movie. Does it 100% work? No, I don't think it 100% works, but enough of it works that I enjoy the movie, enjoy the performances, and I enjoyed seeing the film as I was experiencing it. So I do recommend the movie. So I give it 3.5 stars out of 5 stars. I wish I'd give it 4. Wish I'd give it a little bit higher. But what I do love is The Rock's performance. Dwayne Johnson, that's a 4.5 out of 5 stars performance. Absolutely. It stands out. I won't be surprised if he gets nominated. I'll be surprised if he wins, but I won't be surprised if he gets nominated. Well, if you get a chance to go see Smashing Machine this weekend, let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. Would love to hear from you guys. I always appreciate y'all's points of views on these things. All right, take care of yourselves, be well, and I'll talk to you next time with another brand new non-spoiler review here on the John Rocha channel. Take care.